expressed in this show belong to the person expressing them. They do not purport to reflect the opinions or views of Rancher or any other entity.
Good morning, everybody. And good morning to WifeBot for that beautiful gif from The Sound of Music. The show is alive! Welcome to today's episode of Coffee and Cloud Native, the show that shares news and interesting content related to Kubernetes, Cloud Native, and other nifty technology. My name is Adrian Goins, and I am jacked sideways to be here with you today on this beautiful, gloomy Tuesday. Am I centered? I'm centered. I don't want to be centered. I want to be like on the 3rd. Whatever. Welcome. My teleprompter just scrolled while I was not paying attention. So now I don't know what I'm supposed to say. Yes, if you're watching live, consider subscribing to the channel. There you go. And if you're watching a replay, also please give the video a thumbs up so the YouTube algorithm shares it with other people. Join the free community site, join the Discord server, links to that are in the video description. And for just like a hot second, I'll pop the Discord thing up there. Because live chat happens in Discord with a bot that relays between YouTube and Twitch. So come hang out with us and all of the madness. Wow, Nuno, congrats, level 19. Awesome. So we've got tons of people here today. Let's just take a moment real quick to say hello. Nuno's almost 20. Yeah, in another year, you'll be able to drink. Congratulations. Bala, Frank, Nuno, Peter, Keach, WifeBot, of course. I hear WifeBot laughing in the other room. The Incredible Mulk, Shipwreck. Hey, good morning, bro. Dirk, nice to see you. Thank you for joining us. Mac, Smalls, awesome. Wayne's World, party time. The Super Bowl commercial was lame. How many of you watched the Super Bowl? Awesome. I'm not even really a sports fan. Like I don't know who plays. I just like, I don't know, the Super Bowl is just fun. It's just fun. It's also really difficult to stream it from outside of the United States, but we got skills. All right, so let's move on. If I didn't say hello to you, hello. Anyway, Incredible Mulk, did I say hello? Hello, Incredible Mulk. Anyway, if I didn't say hello, hello, old man with a hat. Oh my gosh, I haven't seen you in forever. Mo Grady, wow. Matthew Cooper. Okay, that's all the scrolling I can do today. Thank you all. If you're here and I didn't say hello, hello, and thank you for joining us. Let's get started. So the collector bots have gathered candidates for the show, and Trufflebot has scored them from 1 to 5 coffees. He's going to post them one at a time in Discord. Anyone watching live can rate them. Your votes are used to train the machine learning model that chooses content for the show. So get in there and vote. First up for today. Today's actually going to be super heavy on security. Not intentionally, just because that's the way that it worked out. And it's kind of awesome. The show items roll into one another, almost like DJ transitions at a good club or something like that. But first, before we get into the security stuff, I want to shout out to our very own Frank, who created an amazing, in tiny font, an amazing blog about how to get started with OpenEBS, NFS Server Provisioner, and RKE with some Rancher sprinkled on top. This is amazing. If you have any interest in any of those things that I just said, then you can just grab any available infrastructure that you have and follow along with this. And he does a wonderful job of explaining why he made the decisions that he made, so that, because you might make different decisions. Like you don't need to do the same thing that Frank did, but it's important to know how he got to where he ended up. And then this is one of those articles, you see I always talk about the scroll bar. Look at that scroll bar over there. It's like this big. So it's a fantastic article, step by step, walking through how to do everything along the way, how, why, what. Awesome. Check this out. Thank you, Frank. All right, now we can talk about security stuff. All over the interverse from yesterday, TeamTNT is back mining Monero in your Kuberneteses. I just picked one of the arbitrary, literally like 100 articles showed up yesterday about this. Yeah, so if you have a vulnerable Kubernetes cluster, I mean, let's start there. Like we had them on the show last year because we didn't have them on the show, but last year they were compromising containers. Things the Docker engine had the Docker API port was open and sitting out on the internet. And if you do that, well, you kind of deserve what you get. But I mean, I don't know how this keeps happening, but it does. So whatever. Those people, TeamTNT, thanks you for your contribution as they mine Monero on your infrastructure. But now they're doing the same thing with open Kubernetes kubelet ports or API server. In this case, they're compromising the kubelet. Because if you have the kubelet sitting out there, and you have to do a lot of things wrong to get here. You got to have the kubelet sitting out on the internet, port 10250. You also have to have it configured to allow anonymous access, which pretty much every Kubernetes distribution turns that off for you. And we'll talk about that in a second. But let's say that you do all of these things. You put a sign in your front yard that says, hey, my front door is open. Please don't come steal my big chest full of gold. Then, well, whatever. So they've come in but this article talks about, is this big enough? This article talks about how they're getting in and what they're doing. And one of the things that it introduced me to that I did not know about is Teammate. Teammate is it's not a hacking tool. It's not a bad thing. But like I'm sitting down here in South America, and sometimes I want to help people with SSH commands. We end up in like a Zoom session, and there's lots of lag and whatever. One of the things that I'll do is if they'll give me SSH access, I'll SSH into a host, and then I'll fire up Screen in a way that they can also connect to it, because I want to make sure that they're learning what I'm doing, and also that they see that I'm not installing cryptojacking software, crypto mining software. So Teammate is a really cool reverse shell union thing that you can run a listener on, and then somebody else can connect to it, and then you guys can be doing, you can be working in the same thing. And even if you're sitting right next to the person, one of the use cases for this that they provided that I thought was really cool is if you have two people doing pair programming using different keyboards. Wow. What a simple solution for a problem that has plagued me forever. I lived in Poland for a while. I live in South America now. The keyboards are different. In fact, WifeBot uses a Spanish keyboard, and I don't know why. She just likes it. And if I go over to her computer, I have to switch it to English, and then I type on the Spanish keyboard as if it was an English keyboard, and then she gets confused when it doesn't switch back. Anyway, so they installed Teammate, and that's one of the C2 connections. They also have an IRC connection, and then they proceed to go on and compromise the crap out of your system. I suspect that nobody who watches this show is susceptible to this kind of a compromise, but it's worth checking. So let's move on to the next articles where we can explore how these things might happen. How exactly does somebody go and own a system via the Kubelet API? And how do we know that we're not vulnerable to it? Well, this article here from Eduardo talks about that very thing. How convenient. The Kubelet API is responsible, it's an agent that runs on each node in the cluster, and it's responsible for managing all the containers that are running in every pod in the Kubernetes cluster. You can communicate with the kubelet either via the Kubernetes API server or directly to the kubelet. And as far as how it works, like I said, pretty much everything disables anonymous access. So you have to intentionally launch it with anonymous access enabled. And he shows you how to do that, because if you want to actually practice compromising Kubernetes, I think it's important that we know what we're defending against. So then, well, let's create a vulnerable Kubernetes server. Kubernetes Goat might also do this for you. He then walks us through how to find things on Shodan that are exposed and possibly have anonymous access by doing a query for port 10250, SSL true, and 404 on a get slash, because it's an API. Once you find one, you can query it with running pods, and if you get back a bunch of stuff, boom, baby, you in. And now we continue with privilege escalation. He introduced us to kubelet, a simple utility for scanning public unauthenticated Kubernetes clusters and then running commands inside of containers. There are lots of tools that will do stuff. We've had others on the show before. You can go and look at the security tag or the pony tag in the CNCN website, and you'll find lists of stuff. So here we launch with Minikube a vulnerable Kubernetes server, because of course we don't want to practice hacking other people's servers far away, because that's, well, it's not nice and probably illegal, depending on where you are. Then he installs Tiller, because a lot of people are still running Helm v2, which ran Tiller, which had privileges that allowed it to do basically admin level stuff inside of the cluster. And that particular thing is the reason that Helm v3 doesn't use Tiller, because, well, that's better. But a lot of people are still running Helm v2, and I still run into modern, like current blog articles that are posting, oh, let's install Tiller and then install an application via Helm. Don't do that. But for the test, we do that. And then we move on to remote code execution. And he walks through, I'll just scroll through the rest of this also very long article. Remote code execution inside of a container, obtaining service account tokens, accessing the API from inside the cluster by installing, well, either directly via SOCAT or by installing kubectl onto the Tiller pod and then talking to the Kubernetes API from inside. Escaping the container with access to the node file system, once again, exploiting Tiller, but you can do this with any privileged level pod that might be running. Escaping the container to remote code execution on the nodes themselves. And here he refers to NSEnter. And we've had NSEnter on the show a couple of times in the past, where it's a really cool way to gain access to a host via Kubernetes for legitimate reasons. And I was thrilled to discover that after I found it and tested it and thought it was really cool, DigitalOcean disabled it. So you cannot actually use NSEnter on DigitalOcean Kubernetes clusters, probably on the big boys as well, but I haven't tested it. And it may be worth disabling this in your infrastructure as well if you don't use it or need it. But it's a cool thing. And then here's a whole graphic for the attack path. Now he closes with some security best practices to prevent this type of attack. Disable anonymous access for the kubelet. Don't expose the kubelet API port to the outside world. Duh. Only publicly expose the kube API server when needed. That's interesting. Depends on your actual use case. You could VPN in to run your kubectl commands. You could use an authentication proxy like Rancher sitting in front that can handle that. But now, while that's good and it reduces the number of things that you have exposed, you still need to make sure that that is secure to make sure that if people compromise that, they can't get access to everything else. Ensure that service accounts have least privileges. Don't run containers with privilege modes or high availability. Create pod security policy rules or other policy OPA gatekeeper, Kyverno, to define security conditions that a pod has to run in order to be accepted in the cluster and mutate those if they're wrong. And one thing that's not here, but that I also recommend is network policies to make sure that your pods are only able to communicate with the things that they need to communicate for their stuff. So like not being able to communicate with the kube API server or other pods or do port scanning or whatever. Here's how to hack the kubelet. And what's next? Well, if you already have a Kubernetes cluster, maybe you just want to audit it. So here's kubeaudit. Kubeaudit is a utility that can audit your manifests as part of a CI process, or you can just, customize build, save it to a file. I wish more of these things, kubelinter will also do stuff, but I wish that they would accept stuff on standard in. It really annoys me. I want to do customized build, pipe, kubeaudit. But I tried that this morning because I wanted to show it to you guys, and it was like, it tried to connect to something via kubectl and it complained. So kubeaudit is a tool. Like I said, there's also kubelinter, and there are other tools that can provide an audit of your existing cluster. This one, for example, can run as a container inside of a cluster, and it'll try to figure out if it's running in a cluster and then perform auditing of the stuff from inside, and it'll audit the crap out of your whole Kubernetes cluster. Manifest mode or local mode. Local mode will try to connect to a cluster using the local kubeconfig file and then smack it around. And then it has its output error levels. So it has severity levels of error, warning, and info. And and then a bunch of different stuff that it can audit. Now, most of these have a list of things that they can do. That might not be everything you need to do, so you might have to run multiples of them. But what if that's not enough? I don't know what's next, but something's next. Yeah! Boundary, baby. This is a blog article that was released a week ago. Since I'm only running shows twice a week, I'm actually pulling all content from the previous week up until last night. So you're going to see more stuff that like might be up to a week old. It's not always going to be stuff from yesterday, but wow. So this is a blog article released by HashiCorp about new features inside of Boundary. As we've just discussed, once a user gains access to a container, whether kubectl exec or other types of compromise, they basically have a blank check to do whatever they want inside of that container. The article talks about the difficulty in securing a Kubernetes cluster because you need to secure lots of different points in it in lots of different ways. And I mean, come on, let's be honest. Like, unless your job is entirely dedicated to babysitting a cluster, like it's just a lot of stuff to keep track of. You come up with checklists and audits and whatever, but you know, you might still miss something. So what if you had a tool that could provide restricted access even within the boundaries of Kubernetes itself? That's what they're trying to get Boundary to do. I love HashiCorp. I love HashiCorp. So by running Boundary on Kubernetes, you can restrict network access for ingress to one point, the Boundary pod, and then apply additional role-based access control and network level restrictions from there. So the ingress point can proxy all necessary TCP connections to any other container. This can be done with minimal operational overhead and next to no YAML engineering. This same tool can integrate with an underlying cloud platform to provide one tool to access the infrastructure or the workloads. So now you have one tool for getting on the hosts if you need to, and also for accessing workloads directly. They now have in the 0.14 release a new, 0.1.4, Boundary Connect Kube feature, which forks kubectl under the hood to allow you to gate API calls to your Kubernetes cluster with Boundary. So you can now restrict via Boundary what API calls the users are allowed to make. So you can control what they're allowed to see and what they're allowed to do before they even get to the Kubernetes cluster. These are fantastic features for security. And if you haven't looked at Boundary yet, with every single release that they are releasing, with every single release that comes out, they're adding more and more cool stuff. And if anything else that HashiCorp has ever done is a model that we can expect them to follow, this thing is going to be just an absolute beast in another few months or a year. But what if that's not good enough for you? What if you're like, you know what? I don't trust myself or my users or my admins or whatever. Or I just want, I just want an outside opinion. Well, this also popped up yesterday. And while I don't normally promote stuff from companies that I don't have a relationship with or that don't, well, whatever. I mean, come on, look at the title. Free Kubernetes Security Audit. Okay. Obviously, they're a Kubernetes security consulting company. Well, not just Kubernetes, but cloud native stuff. So obviously they're going to want you to buy their services afterwards, but they are offering a free audit. You just fill out the form, they'll get on a call with you, they'll go poke around your cluster, and they will give you a customized report of what they've discovered and hopefully remediation solutions. But if they don't give you those things, you can find them yourself. And then of course, they're going to be like, hey, you want to contract services? And that's up to you to decide if you want to. They are a company. They exist to make money. Obviously, they're not doing this so that the entire internet can come and get free security audits, but it's also a funnel. So there's still value in this, and it's worth talking to them. That's Bion Consulting in the UK. I've never heard of them before, but I like that picture. That kind of wraps up the security stuff. Security? K0S. K0S has decided that the 0 means frictionless. I still like thinking that it means chaos. I don't know. Anyway, frictionless Kubernetes. They now have a new release, so 0.10, and this includes chaos control, or chaos CTL, which is a tool for deploying multi-node clusters with a single command. Oh. You know that there's a lot of overlap between K0s and K3s. However, as they're releasing more things, it's clear that they're on a slightly different, maybe mostly parallel path to K3s. And I think that they are trying to solve real problems. With K3s, even if you're using catch-up, you still have to run multiple commands. You have to create the master and then go and join the nodes. And probably all they've done is just like wrap that in a wrapper and run those commands for you. But it's less stuff you have to do. So there's that. And then Chaos CTL is going to do some more stuff. They have experimental support for dual stack IPv4 and IPv6, improvements to HA support, and some other stuff. They've now bumped Kubernetes up to 1.20.2. Yeah, that's nice. So this is out. If you use K0s, I still want somebody to do like a apples to apples comparison of them. Somebody could be me in my copious amounts of time. Next. Okay, we got 952. Next up. Using Traefik Ingress controller with Istio service mesh. When I looked at Istio, which granted I have not seriously looked at Istio in a long time, but one of the things that kept me from deploying it was I already had Ingress controller and ingresses, and I was using all of those things, and I didn't like that Istio required a separate method to get content into the mesh itself. I was like, why can't we just plug it into the Kubernetes functionality that we already have? And we couldn't. And maybe they've done some stuff, to make that better. I don't know, because I haven't looked at it in forever. But here's how you can use Traefik with Istio service mesh. I thought that was interesting. I mean, obviously, so Traefik will communicate with Envoy and use the ingress route config to rewrite the host header to match the destination, and it'll do a bunch of stuff. So if you're looking at Istio and you want to use Traefik, there you go. Yay. Okay. This, hang on a second. There was something, I don't know which one it was. There was something that referred to Garden today in an earlier article. No. I don't know why we don't have it. Maybe these got shuffled. It's definitely not there. Okay, well, whatever. So, Garden. The Configure Once Kubernetes platform for seamless dev-prod integration. Everybody wants to solve the developer problem. I don't know if the developers have actually told us what the problem is, but everybody seems to know that the developer has a problem with Kubernetes. Garden is trying to solve what I think is actually an interesting problem. The interesting problem is that, so they talk about CI environments and the difference between local development and, let me make sure that I'm actually talking about the right article here. Yeah. So local development, oh, I know what it was. It was the codefresh article. That didn't show up yet. Oh, okay. We probably won't get to it today because I got to do tool of the day next. There's a codefresh article that'll show up in the links that talks about anti-patterns for Kubernetes. It's actually part 1 of 3. And so you can get to the links to the other ones. And it's all sorts of really good suggestions on how not to architect your application for Kubernetes and what to do instead. Not like how to not Kubernetes, but not like how to not use Kubernetes, but if you're using Kubernetes, how to architect your application to make the best use of Kubernetes and not burn yourself in the future. And one of the things, so that Garden was one of the things that they pointed to. Garden wants to solve the problem of stuff being different and giving you an easy way to configure things. And they do this by building what they call a stack graph that you can't really see there, where you have a configuration that defines the relationships between the various parts of your application, and then it understands how to build and wire those together in multiple environments. It looks cool. So with a single command, any application developer can spin up their own namespaced production-like environment in a Kubernetes cluster. It's a great way to replicate the functionality between local environments for testing, CI environments, and making sure that things are fully replicated, such that by the time you get to CI, your integration tests have already completed, and the CI process is almost like a rubber stamp because you've done all the testing locally. Worth taking a look at. First time I'd heard of it was yesterday. I just want to see. Oh, it's 9:56. I'm going to try it. Is it the codefresh article? Yes, it is. Okay, I'm not going to go through it. I just want to show it to you. For those of you who don't come and get your links off the community site later, this whole series of articles is fantastic. And in here, they have a really good recommendation. Yeah, okay, so there's the mention of Garden. And it was in this recommendation where, this is the first time I've seen this. We see lots of stuff, including what I just talked about developers running local Kubernetes clusters. But if developers hate Kubernetes, why are you going to make them run it locally? And honestly, it's difficult to get a local Kubernetes cluster that replicates the production environment realistically, because there's all these other dependent services and databases and things. And that's a problem that lots of companies are trying to solve. Well, their idea is build your application in such a way that on the laptop, you can run it in Docker Compose. Wow, okay. Not actually a step backwards, but a step towards easiness, simplicity. Simplicity. Hey, Dirk. Read this whole series. Codefresh knows their stuff, and there's a lot of really good, not just like rehashing stuff that everybody already says, but really good advice based on the experience that they have in providing their services to everybody that they provide service for. Super, super cool series. All right, now we got to get to the tool of the day. And today's show, we're reading 4 coffees. Do we get the tool of the day jingle? Got to do it myself. Okay, I need your help with this. You right there watching, all of you. I want us to help this guy. Brenner? Who are you? Brenner, Max. Max Brenner. We're going to help Max. Max has created an operator for UptimeRobot that will take your ingresses and turn them into UptimeRobot configuration. Now, UptimeRobot is a really simple modern day reinvention of pingdom, maybe. I don't know. For all I know, they are pingdom. But, they just do a really basic uptime monitoring service. And Dirk reported to me that the redirect server that I run was actually broken and wasn't redirecting properly. And it looked like it actually been broken since like the 20th of January. And because I haven't been monitoring it, I had no idea. So I have a task item now to implement something like this. Now, UptimeRobot will give you up to 50 monitors for free on 5-minute checks. But then we've got the Pro plan here, which gives you 1-minute checks and you can go from there. So Max has created this operator that it's not perfect, and he admits it. We're going to talk about that in a second. So he's created this operator that will turn your ingresses into stuff. Now, the first thing that's not perfect is right there. It's designed such that he's exposing secret information in the annotations. We're going to talk to him about that. One of the things that he says here, though, is where is it? He talks about the Pro account. Where is it? Here we go. Okay, so of course it's in an early phase. Don't use it in production. It's going to be totally broken and whatever. I'm not able to test Pro plan features because I don't have a Pro account. So he has them implemented according to the documentation, but he has no ability to test them. That's where I would like your help. I would like very much if UptimeRobot, are you watching? I would like if UptimeRobot gave Max a Pro account, because Max is building something that will help bring people to your platform. He's doing it for free. So that $7 a month or $15 a month or whatever account costs you nothing for the benefit that you'll get. So when this goes out as a tweet later, if you guys want to take this for a test drive, if you want to promote issues on it, let's get Max in front of UptimeRobot and see if they'll give him some love. Otherwise, I think Shipwreck is going to have some stuff to say about this, possibly later this week. I'm not sure. He'll let us know later on, and I'll tell you on the Thursday show. In general, I think this is super cool, and I want to see Max run with this. And of course, that brings us to the end of the show. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for watching. I don't know. I could probably just end it with that. Thank you so much for watching. Boom, end. Links to everything I talk about on the show go up in the free community side at community.cncn.io after the show ends. Come join us. Lots of you have been joining lately. We got like 35 people that joined in the last 4 days. Hello, and thank you to all of you. Community members get early access to the links, video replay, and other exclusive content. And remember that the community site is yours. You can post stuff there. If you want to post full-blown articles, let me know. But right now you can just post, talk, share, do. If you find things that are great, I mean, if you have something you want me to consider for the show, then certainly post it in the community site, post it in the show suggestions channel in Discord. But whether it's for the show or not, as you're just living your life and learning things and finding stuff and whatever, share it. Because all of us benefit. We have 300 people, something like that on the community site right now. More people joining every day. Come on. You can share what you've experienced and touch the lives of 300 or more people. And if it gets on the show, you can touch the lives of hundreds more. Think about it. Have a great day, everyone. Keep learning. Keep learning. Somebody sort of half hinted that I didn't learn stuff. And yeah, that person's wrong. Because I try to learn something every single day. I try to go to bed at night knowing something I didn't know when the day began. And if I haven't done that, I will stay up until I do it. So knowledge is the key to success. Keep learning. I'll see you in the next show. Stay caffeinated.